Peace, family. My name is Vicki Dillard for African Diaspora News Channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to give us a big thumbs up, and share the broadcast. Thank you so much, family. Now, how many of you all remember a few weeks ago, I did a broadcast. I've done several broadcasts on the great, glorious country of Eritrea, as some of you pronounce it, and the great President Afwerki. Yes, Isaias Afwerki, and his wonderful people there. Well, the last broadcast that I did was a reminder of an interview he had some years ago with a reporter where he exposed the suspect engagement of the West involving Somalia, right? He talked about how the West put their puppets in place to destabilize the entire region by stabilizing Somalia, right? If you don't know what I'm talking about, just look back a few weeks ago and you'll see that. Yes? Well, I want you to keep that in mind, the fact that I reminded us not too long ago of something that President Isaias Afwerki said related to why they're destabilizing the region, specifically using Somalia. Yes? Even though they tried to blame him for it. Well, with that being said, family, prior to that broadcast that I did, the last couple of broadcasts that I did on Eritrea, I discussed that I thought it was suspicious that President Tayyip Erdogan, who's the president of Turkey, right? He was involved in negotiations or mediations between Ethiopia and Somalia, right? Now, that negotiation and stuff took place, I think, at the end of December, officially. At least that's when one of the reports came out. About 6-7 months ago. Yes. So I discussed my issues with that and then his suspicious connections with NATO and some other stuff, and for them to be careful about putting folks like that in their business, right? Just to be wary. Wary, rather. Well, it's interesting here because we're finding now, and of course, this took place a few months ago after that news came out. Yes, that it says that Turkey discovers 20 billion barrels of oil in Somalia. Now, it says 2 of 3 oil exploration blocks operated by Turkey and Somalia have yielded commercially viable reserves, with each estimated to contain up to 10 billion barrels of tradable crude. It says preliminary drilling and geological, I'm moving to the next paragraph here. Geological assessments in the completed blocks have concluded successfully, marking a significant breakthrough and Ankar's deepening energy ambitions in East Africa. The third block remains under active exploration, with results expected by August. The quality and grade of the oil in that block will be determined following laboratory analysis in Turkey. The discovery comes just days after reports surfaced that Somalia had granted Turkey a highly favorable profit-sharing agreement, giving Ankara a 90% stake in revenues from offshore production. The arrangement, which has not been officially published, has drawn sharp criticism from some of the country's political leaders, who warned that such an imbalance could amount to the exploration of Somalia's exploitation, of Somalia's natural sources. Yes. So that was one report. And then, of course, I saw another one here from Somalia Guardian, which says that Turkey discovers $20 billion barrels. Actually, that was from that previous one there that I seen. This particular one is actually from, I apologize here. Let me go back. Yes. From Middle East Monitor. Middle East Monitor. Excuse me. I want to get the names right. So I think that this is quite interesting, don't you? Family. What in the world is really going on, and what are the geopolitical consequences of this? Now, if that's true, because some of the reports, the full report hasn't come out, once we look at this, we definitely have to look at the fact of whether or not our brothers and sisters are being taken advantage of, and whether or not it's an appropriate agreement with this 90 to 10%, if that's even true. So we're going to be looking closely at that. I don't want to jump to conclusions because all the details are not out yet, but I'm very curious as to your response, as well as the fact that our great President Afwerki of Eritrea has already warned us that the United States and the West tends to make mischief with Somalia, and of course Somaliland and some others that have been making mischief there in order to cause a disturbance in that region, which of course would indirectly affect Eritrea. So I'm curious as to you all's thoughts about this. Not only that, I'm curious as to the fact that Turkey, as far as I know, is still directly connected with NATO, even though they make threats all the time, and they have differences with some of the NATO states, which obviously have to do with the United States and her European allies. But I'm curious, is that going to cause an issue there? And seeing the war that's going on now in the Middle East, the continuous upheaval there in multiple countries, I'm wondering, is there going to be some backlash from the West where they're going to be trying to fight for some of these resources and then turn around and fight their neighbor, fight their ally, Turkey, for some of these resources in that region? Are they going to continue to messmake with Somaliland, as I've reported before, in order to try to access that region for other resources there? This is very suspicious to me. More to come, to be sure, but I can't wait to hear your input on this. Beloved, I want you to mark your calendars for a free offline private webinar that I'm doing Monday, July 14th. That's Monday, July 14th. Beloved, you don't want to miss this, where I'm going to be discussing watch this, the dark ghost that's involved in this latest war in the Middle East with the nuclear fight, the nuclear threat between Netanyahu and his people and Iran. You don't want to miss this, baby. The ancient Black connections to Iran and Persia. Baby, I'm going to break it down like nobody's business. Get your free seat at my website at VickiPlanet.com. That's VICKI Planet.com. Be sure to share the broadcast. I can't